And welcome to the We Like Sportz Podcast. I am alongside Casey as we end up waiting for the others to join Drew, CJ, and possibly Stephen R. Smith or Riggs. Who knows who's going to end up? Who knows who we get today? But Casey, welcome in.
Hello. What's going on?
Not too much. Before we end up running things down, obviously, there's been a lot to talk about. I feel like this is going to be a very XFL heavy type show in baseball rules wise, just due to the fact that the baseball rules everybody's talking about by now too. And also we're going to be talking some NBA All-Star Weekend. Kevin Love being bought out by the Cavaliers. You got Eric Bieniemy finding a new home in Washington with the Commanders. And I guess a general football question ahead, as well as some Guardians talk too if we end up getting that far. But we'll find out as the day goes on. But Casey, I want to end up asking you, with Eric Bieniemy being the offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders now, what are your thoughts? Does it make sense? Is he a good offensive coordinator, or was he just a part of a good winning culture? Because honestly, this is going to prove it.
I mean, it's a tricky scenario because if you look at it what was it, 3 years ago? Well, they started saying, oh, he might be the head coach for some teams. They're looking into him. And that whole Brian Flores thing happened with the race. So then ever since that, Bieniemy really hasn't got any attention, I feel like. But it's tough because would he stay with the Chiefs? Because, I mean, who says they're not going to repeat next year or stay contending until Mahomes gets off the team or too old to play? So, I mean, it's either stay as an OC there, then attempt to go to Washington at a weaker team, weaker quarterback, weaker offense. And, I mean, you're really trying to prove it to make it, because I don't know. That's a tough choice to leave a successful team for the same spot at a mediocre at best team.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that too. I mean, that's definitely going to be the case, is that you have to end up figuring out. It was definitely an uncomfortable decision, but like you mentioned, though, unfortunately with the NFL, that's just the way that things are, and it's going to come down to race, and that's the reason why. I mean, if he ends up winning anything with Washington, it's going to be hard to argue against that he's a bad offensive coordinator. He doesn't deserve an opportunity as a head coach. Like, it's hard to argue anything of that sort if he does succeed in Washington.
Correct, because I mean, if he would have stayed with the Chiefs and been successful, I mean, they could still say the same thing as, oh, he's just with a good operation with good players around him. Now, I mean, exactly like you said, if he goes to the Commanders and they have a good offense, there's no chance that you could say that he didn't deserve a head coaching shot.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, who do they have? They have Sam Howell as their quarterback right now. And
yeah, exactly.
And in the past, you had Carson Wentz, and we were talking about on Friday during our radio show on out in Sandusky, 1450. Got to plug that in there, 1450/93.5 FM. But we were talking.
I don't get those channels.
Yeah, there's an app though for that, so you could end up having it possibly. But
if I knew
about with football, Eric Bieniemy, if Washington makes sense, it does, because Ron Rivera and his health, he might have more opportunities to be the role of the head coach instead of a coordinator than with what most teams. And maybe that's why he took that, is because of the opportunity with Andy Reid. You would have thought by now that Andy Reid was done, over with. You could have guessed that he would have retired, but he's winning one more at least, or at least attempting to, and he's not done, and that's why Bieniemy probably ended up leaving.
I mean, it's not a bad thought, because when Todd Haley took over as the Browns offensive coordinator, I think as the thought process of becoming the next head coach, that didn't happen. But I could see people doing that, because when there's a head coach in a spot, and they kind of get familiar with the team then before they become head coach as well in that scenario. So it's not like they're going to a brand new organization. It's kind of an advantage if he was to become head coach of the Commanders eventually. But like I said, it's hard to tell until it happens, because it all is on potential of who, like I said, who's the Commanders going to go after? What are they going to do? Is Sam Howell the answer? We don't know.
Right, and who knows what happens on draft day, too, with trades. I mean, I saw something earlier on that the Bears might make sense. It isn't happening. It's not guaranteed, but it might make sense that the Bears trade to the Colts Justin Fields, and the Colts get a better draft pick. And that could be really interesting, because Justin Fields has said that he wanted to play in a dome. Colts have a dome. They got a new head coach that's pretty much offensive minded for the most part. The Colts do, and familiar with a good team. So if that were to happen, I mean, I think that shakes up the NFL as a whole, and you still have Aaron Rodgers, you still have Derek Carr out there as well. Things are going to get really interesting here in the next couple of weeks.
I mean, that's hard to see, but yeah, I mean, I don't think Fields. I'd be shocked if the Bears get rid of Fields because that's the only glimmer of hope they had last year. Like, you take him off that team, there was nothing that was productive out of that Bears season. At least they could say hit a star player, a star in the making. So that was be shocking to trade away someone for, another unknown and see 2-3 years down the road what actually are they going to be, like Zach Wilson. I mean,
Right,
he's only
exactly.
going into his third year, and he really hasn't had a shot, I would say. So it's hard to say, is it just like Geno Smith? I mean, that's
It's somebody that came out of nowhere with him that it just doesn't make sense. And sometimes that is the case, that it's the wrong organization that you're with. Geno Smith had no business in being as good as he was this past year, but it worked out.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And even Daniel Jones. I mean, like Daniel Jones had a pretty good Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts we didn't think was that great going into this season, let alone a team like a quarterback that would lead a team to the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I think it's hard to kind of judge so early into their careers because there's so much left and so many opportunities left.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, definitely. And the thing is that like with somebody like Justin Fields, if you were to end up trading him away to the Colts and the Bears get somebody like Will Levy, that just doesn't make sense. And it's not the right quarterback class outside of maybe Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, but like everybody thinks that the Kentucky quarterback's going to be the guy that goes first instead of somebody from Ohio State. But that's just usually the way that quarterbacks in the NFL and the way the draft ends up going, unfortunately. But I don't think that'd be a right decision for the Bears to do that by any means, though, like you were saying.
Who says that Hendon Hooker isn't like a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson of the draft from Tennessee? I mean, because he had a pretty good year until he got hurt. And then, I mean, he's 6'5", so he's not a small guy. He's a pretty big guy, or a Josh Allen type, that you wouldn't expect to get picked a little later and become the best quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing is that sometimes look at Tom Brady. That's only the argument. And look at somebody like Petty now at this point. Purdy, not Petty, Purdy, like Brock Purdy right now, because they don't matter where they get drafted at. Regardless, you're getting success no matter what round. And I think that's just been relevant, no pun intended, for the last couple of years. Like Tom Brady's the greatest argument, and then you have him as one of the greatest of all times, if not the greatest of all time. And then Brock Purdy, that is essentially undefeated as a starting quarterback that nobody knew about, and he was a guy that played quarterback at Iowa State. Who was the last relevant person that played out of Iowa State or a small school like that? Like, you could argue Carson Wentz, maybe, but he wasn't even that good for long.
Josh Allen. I mean, he came
Wyoming,
from
right?
Wyoming. Yeah, it wasn't a big school. Where did Jared Goff come from?
I want to say he was like California.
Yeah. It was Cal. I couldn't remember. Someone else came from Cal, I think, too.
It was butt fumble, Mark Sanchez.
He was USC Sanchez.
Oh wait, who was the other one? Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers, maybe.
I think it was. Let's see. Yeah, it was. It was Rodgers. That's right. I knew it was somebody. I knew it was a good quarterback. 2005, but he was drafted 24th, in the first round. So it wasn't like he was picked high. So
I mean, look at Mahomes. Even Mahomes was what? He was middle of
15th.
Yeah, middle of the
Was
first.
it? Didn't the Browns trade away that pick that took him?
Trust me, you're the Browns fan. You know better, and I'm sure they did. You know this by now.
2017, he was drafted. Let's see. He was taken 10th. Deshaun Watson was taken 12th. So we traded away the pick that took Deshaun Watson.
And it still went full circle for the Browns to still get Watson somehow.
We got rid of a lot more, though. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no kidding. Could you
Already
imagine if
done.
they could have just got Patrick Mahomes just settled and kept
Well,
that
because they drafted instead that year when they traded back, they got Jabril Peppers,
Oh man.
which then turned into Odell Beckham.
Right. The temporary, that's the whole what if trade scenario though with the Browns drafting. Like look at the draft that Braylon Edwards came in. Like you could end up picking out anybody else. Like the Browns could have had Michael Thomas at one point too, even if you want to go that far.
No, it's true, and it's crazy looking at like us trading away from Deshaun Watson, then ending up with Preppers, which then ended up with Odell, which then ended up with nothing because Odell ended up being nothing. So after we
Right.
get rid of him, so
And they had to blow it up and then go ahead for the future and figure that out then.
and then we're back to Deshaun Watson, and we gave up all these more picks to get him. So
How do you feel about the Browns' future, though? As like a Homer standpoint, even, but I mean, this is also coming from a different standpoint because you end up hearing opinions from down in Florida way more often than just Cleveland locals. So, I mean, what are your thoughts for it? Like, is it possible this year it's do or die for the Browns, boom or bust? You have to end up winning a championship finally because you have Deshaun Watson all year long. You have defense with Myles Garrett. You have Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt's on the way out.
correct. I mean, I could tell you from my Madden experience, um, going into next season, it's kind of tough with the price we're paying for everybody. So I don't know how you could really run a team with $46 million, rephrase it, $54 million cap hit, one player. But I mean, it's tough to say because, like you said, we're gonna lose Kareem Hunt. We're gonna have probably Cooper's gonna be gone after next year. I don't think we're gonna keep him. I'm not against keeping him, but then we'll see.
It
Chubb will
depends
be
on
another.
what they elevate him. If Deshaun Watson,
Correct.
they still elevate him into something like that. The Browns stole that trade from the Cowboys without a doubt.
Oh yeah, there's no loss on that one. I agree. But then you got Batonio, who's getting up there in age. I feel like Denzel Ward, gets injured all the time. Jedrick Wills he's not the left tackle. I don't think that's going to be the answer because he's been struggling the last few years. We're losing Clowney, so we got to find a guy that's strengthens the D line with Myles Garrett. That's all we have right now. So it is tricky to say. It is. It's hard.
And like, what part are you focused on for next year that needs the improvement? Is it defense or is it offense? Because if you look, you could argue both sides here, even because offensively, their wide receiver room, it's a bunch of rookies and unknown players essentially that aren't that ideal price tag almost. Like Donovan Peoples-Jones isn't going to be a household name everywhere. Maybe in Cleveland, but like
I like Peoples Jones a lot.
you end up having like not too many wide receivers outside of Amari Cooper. Like a lot of those, like Michael Woods the third, ended up kind of emerging throughout the year that was just drafted and just kind
Anthony
of
Schwartz.
Yeah, Anthony Schwartz. He isn't going to get you far, unfortunately. And like that's just the reality. And you could focus on wide receiver, or you could focus on the defensive side because, like you said, the D line needs help. You could end up making a trade. Who knows? I know the price tag's going to be high, but if you end up getting Chris Jones from Kansas City, if you get Fletcher Cox from the Eagles, that would end up helping out a huge amount. But the likelihood of them, it's going to be another 10 million draft picks that you're going to give up.
No, correct. And then we got Cade York at kicker. Is he the answer? I don't know about that.
And it's just all about his elevation on his kicks too, as well. That changes everything too. Is once people spit them out.
And I'm telling you, it's crazy because like he starts the year so solid, we draft him so high, and then all downhill. I finally thought we had a kicker, which solved the problems that we've lost so many games in the last however many years because we haven't had a kicker since Phil Dawson.
Right.
But it's just tricky. But the positive was I just remembered we're going to lose Kareem Hunt, but we have Dearness Johnson behind him, and that Jerome Ford, he's pretty tough too. So I think even if we lose Hunt, like I don't want to lose him, but we still have a pretty solid backup. What Dearness Johnson's sitting out all last year because he probably even got 15 snaps. Like I don't remember even seeing him in except for special teams. So I think that he's a strong backup behind Chubb.
And with the Dearness Johnson contract situation too, he might also. I think he might have an option, or it's one of those like arbitration processes. But either way, though, even if that is the case and he ends up leaving too, you still have Ford, and Ford's supposed to have however much expectations. He's also a Cincinnati guy, I want to say.
Well,
So
he's only
still that
23,
kind of
so
yeah, it would be with running back though. You have people that are. Are you at the point as a Browns fan? And I know people are just crazy fans and always playing trade makers and everything on those ESPN apps and everything. But with that being said, though, with guys like Myles Garrett or Nick Chubb, they're trying to figure out like packages to end up trading them away. Is there any likelihood? Like, do you even want to see that happen? If so, what side of the ball? Because like Nick Chubb, that's your best running back in the league, isn't it?
yeah, I can't get rid of Chubb. I mean, I wouldn't get rid of Myles Garrett. Like I wouldn't get rid of Batonio just because I view him like Joe Thomas. He's been on the team for so long. I mean, yeah, Denzel Ward on the other side, JOK on the other side too. That's pretty strong, I feel.
And you also have on the D line too, and nobody really talks about it, but he also didn't perform that well this past year. Was Togiai from Ohio State that was supposed to have all this hype. Still trying to figure him out. Maybe it's just that environment that you're the rookie, you're sitting behind, and you're going to get your reps in from afar, and that's what you have to do at times. But that is the likelihood that replacement for Jadeveon Clowney? I don't think so.
No, I don't, and it's tough because Clowney had a good year 2 years ago with us, and then he had a problem with Myles Garrett this year. So it's hard to say because you got to get a guy that's not thinks he's the best. Like how like Clowney was, wasn't worried about the team as much as he was worried about himself.
It was them with Odell Beckham Jr. again. That was the same situation twice, just a different player, different position.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. You get a guy that needs to be a star as well, and you got someone else that's good at, if not just as good, like our Jarvis Landry we had. I don't know. It's and they're even best friends, and they couldn't keep it in line. Like, you know what I mean, and get it figured out. So it's really hard to have two strong people at his position because they're always going to have a problem. Like Kareem Hunt and Chubb. I mean, Hunt wanted to get more touches, but he wasn't getting them because Chubb was. So when you got too much talent, it's a problem.
Yeah, it is, but it's not. Like from a fan standpoint, you're not going to say that there's ever too much talent. It's like the Guardians right now. There's too much talent, yes, but it's a good problem to have, and that's the way we got to look at it. Otherwise, you're just you're arguing over your own team, and it's like, okay, am I going to really want to pick somebody like Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry and David Njoku, all guys that want the ball and wide receiver, tight end positions that's were Baker targeted at the time? Or would I rather end up having all these guys and figure it out afterwards?
No, correct. I mean, and like what we done? Like we've had those issues and we haven't accomplished anything really. We got to the playoffs finally, beat the Steelers, but I don't know. It's just tricky. Yeah, it's tricky.
Of course, you had to include that in there too. You have to include in the shot that they beat the Steelers. I'm not surprised.
That's right.
Deserved.
That's right. Couldn't forget that.
No, I got way too many text messages that night when that was happening. But changing gears, though, still talking about football. But did you end up seeing any of the XFL action? I mean, ran by The Rock, finally, not Vince McMahon. It was intriguing, I guess. Like, the games I did catch, it was intriguing. It was worth watching. I mean, every team that was out of it weren't really out of it because you ended up seeing the 4th and 15 onside kick. You saw the 3-point conversion or the 2-point conversion to tie the game up. I mean, whatever the Saturday afternoon game was, I want to say that was Houston Roughnecks game that they ended up having Vegas come back from behind, and they ended up having the 4th and 15 not converted. So that was their onside kick attempt that they missed. But they were down by a ton. And you end up having, I saw AJ McCarron lead his team to some nonsense. That's the best way to put it.
Correct. I mean, I saw like a little bit of a game on Saturday, and I like the first game on Saturday, and a little bit of the game with Josh Gordon.
Okay.
Because I wanted to watch that one. Yeah, Seattle Sea Monsters. I wanted to catch that just because of Josh Gordon. And I saw the touchdown, the Ben DiNucci like ran and flipped it to Josh Gordon, and he got it for his first touchdown. saw about that, and that was it. So I didn't watch much of it. And I saw that highlighted it, like you said, the 4th and 15
Yep.
for the onside kick, and came back, and they won the game, and they were pretty much was over. It looked like kind of like how the Jets beat the Browns last year. But
Yeah. No kidding. That flashback of the game that the Browns that could set the tempo for the whole season by then when that happened.
well, exactly. And I'm not against the XFL. Like I'll watch it. Like probably I'm not this week because I'm working at night, but the week after that, if I'm off early on Saturday, I'll probably put it on the Saturday games and then Sunday.
So with like
And,
that
and the Daytona 500 too. I had watched this Sunday, so I couldn't watch the XFL.
Yeah, I was over Laporta's house. That was him watching NASCAR per usual. There's nothing that ever makes sense. Like,
You left me on a cliffhanger. Last thing you recorded on me said that there's going to be a wreck, and then you cut him off, and then there was a wreck, and you didn't. I need to see his reaction, and then his boy Logano not being in first.
Sports betting is a hell of a thing now, apparently, and that's even that frame of mind for your NASCAR fans are starting to bet. And Travis Pastrana was in that race too, which made no sense whatsoever.
And he was in that wreck at the end of the race.
No, I thought he missed that because he ended up getting like 8th or 9th or 10th.
And he
like,
started it.
What's that?
I said he started the wreck, I think.
Oh, well, if that's the case, I had money on him. It's okay. But yeah, going back to the NFL, XFL. With the 4th and 15 idea, I mean, you're getting a lot of guys. Like one of the post games they ended up having was one of the, I want to say, defensive guys for Vegas or Houston maybe, and they were just talking like that was their first professional game ever that they're playing football in, so that's pretty cool. But outside of that, though, it was just very intriguing to see the different rules that you have, the 3-point conversion, the onside kick thing that's been. If that happens in the NFL, I'm football fans are going to be very. They're going to either be really pissed off or else they're going to be really happy that the action's being the way that it is.
Well,
and at this time, Drew's going to pop on in now, too, and join us with the XFL talk. Drew, welcome on in. Came at a perfect time.
I know. So I heard you talking about the XFL.
Yeah, correct.
I'm all pumped up about the XFL.
So we were talking about, Casey did mention your buddy Ben DiNucci. And Josh Gordon. Jeff Gordon, because you mentioned NASCAR now.
Yeah. Dude, Ben DiNucci, you can take the boy away from the Cowboys, but you can't take the Cowboys away from the boy. Fumble on the 3-yard line, down by 4, with like 30 seconds left. It was first or second down. It was the most Cowboys way to lose I've ever seen.
So what was your thoughts on the weekend overall with the rules, with the 4th down and 15 onside kick, with the idea of a 3-point conversion, all that, like all the rules that I was saying before you ended up joining in, like you could end up getting NFL fans really pissed off or else they could be really invested in this now too, because it's a new way to play football now. Like this is actually nobody was out of a game at all. And the 4th and 15, I forgot about that rule for onside kick. So I'm like, they got the ball back and they're about to score again. No, they complete it. They end up getting that.
My comparison to that was going to be in baseball with the second base guy in second base and extra innings, right?
Yep.
It's kind of throws the numbers off though, because there'll be more conversions now on that 4th and 15 than there would be on onside kicks, I think, easily.
Yeah.
So that's going to it's going to spew a game that it's a 14-point difference with 4 minutes left, and you got the ball and you score. You have a chance to tie it up way more likely now with that.
And 15 it could be an 18-point difference.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. You can hit those things without a problem, and it changes those games.
I like it. I mean, I like it for lower levels to not have teams out of games. I don't mind blowouts in the higher leagues of any sport. I don't like when teams take their foot off the gas. I think if you're up by 30. Go up by 40. I don't care. In minor leagues, experiment with the rules. Make the games more exciting. I mean, I get it, though. I get it that there's the issue with, like, the XFL, like, on screen and everything, having all the betting lines and whatnot. So, encouraging the games to be closer, they're just going to ask for people to, like, have all these wild conspiracy theories. But I like it.
Yeah, it's true. Fun. Yeah, and like you said, I mean, if you get a live spread at plus 14.5 in the XFL, I mean, it's a lot more likely to hit that plus 14.5 than if it would be in the NFL, because like I said, those games are gonna be closer than NFL games because of the way the rules work.
Yeah. And I think there's some rules that the NFL is going to look at. I think the different rules on challenges, how the booth is constantly reviewing the game, so they can call down on obvious things and just tell the official like what to do. I think that's genius. I don't think it should be on coaches to make sure the officials are doing their job. And I like the running clock. I don't mind that the game is just moving, because I think the NFL is too slow.
Yeah, and like you said with the reviews too, they were kind of intriguing just because it wasn't like there was that much time elapsed whatsoever. It was like, okay, we have this play. Is it worth the challenge? No, it's not. Okay, move on to the next play, so on and so forth. Like that was one that I think Saturday afternoon's game that I mentioned. Like that was the game that I ended up seeing the most, and that was the one that I'm like, okay, makes sense. Go ahead. More football, sweet.
Well, with the running clock though, there's so many things that could affect the record books, right? Like it doesn't affect, let's say, the game itself, but it affects the record books because you add one extra game in the NFL season and all the records get broken due to it, right? So you have a running clock, you're going to run less plays probably. Yep. So it's going to probably run down the offense not as much, have a better defense numbers. So it's going to kind of skew that as well. Even like little tiny changes, like I said, throughout it, isn't it? That 4th and 15, it throws little like I said, little stuff off just because of the way it works.
Honestly, I like that they're encouraging kickoffs and kick returns, because what was more fun than when like Devin Hester and Dante Hall,
Josh Cribbs,
like, when those guys were return men, that play mattered. It was exciting. And then the NFL decided, you know what, we really don't like these kickoff things, so we're going to make it so it's a touchback 90% of the time. The XFL goes, absolutely not. We're going to flip the numbers and make sure that they return it 90% of the time. And the way they do the kickoffs, people are not going to get hurt doing that. Like, that's genius.
Yeah, without a doubt. And apparently my doppelganger has now joined CJ, but he's joining in as Peyton Vince for today, apparently. He must have a pair of sunglasses and a receding hairline if I've ever seen one.
What's up? My microphone, the headphones aren't working.
Well, I said you ended up joining in under my name, and you ended up having the same receding hairline that I do.
Yeah, CJ's growing his beard out. That's a new one to me.
He's got the teacher beard going on.
Peyton Vince. It's me.
But we're talking about XFL, CJ. Well, I don't even know what to call you now because now you're confusing me with my own name. But regardless, with the XFL, did you catch any of the XFL action over the weekend? Did you watch Josh Gordon?
I watched a little bit of that game with McCarron.
Okay.
I don't know. That's the only one I watched.
It was the game to watch.
Yeah, I do. The fucking whatchamacallit rules. Instead of onside kicks, that's way better. 3 points, I don't know how I feel about the 3-point conversion, but I like the no onside kicks in the 4th and 15. I think that's way better.
And we were also talking about too, just with the whole entire aspect. Casey mentioned like the amount of like statistics and the conversions now too. That like when it goes into the record book, I think also from like a wide picture too. If the XFL is going to work this time around, I think it's going to work with The Rock running it. And it's not just because The Rock's running it. It just seems like it's flowing. And like the last time it was kind of like that edgier product. You had sideline interviews when guys are caught candidly swearing, saying whatever on the sidelines. And like, that's what they wanted. Now it just kind of seems like it's football. It's just football that's entertaining and like something that everybody could watch. Not like in the past, they could still watch it on ABC. Anybody could watch it, but it's just kind of a little bit more extreme. No pun intended.
I don't think it's gonna work. I wish they were in like I feel like the only place that like is like working with like crowd reactions is like DC. They like really get into
St. Louis.
And yeah, like I feel like you need
Battlehawks, baby.
Like goofier cities, like St. Louis where there's no sport. I don't know, like kind of like outside cities.
San Diego needs to get a team. San Diego.
What's the team that's named after The Rock?
The Brahmas? Which one's the Brahmas, Drew?
San Antonio.
Yeah.
But like Columbus wouldn't be a bad city. It's a crowded town. It's got a college.
Yeah, for it to like succeed and stay alive, I feel like they're gonna need to like
Yeah, I think they just gotta. I think this season's a test it out.
Yeah,
it's
like the USFL, they're the ones they play in like one city, right?
Right.
Which is like weird as shit to me.
Well, yeah, it sucks for everybody that doesn't live there.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of bigger cities that don't have a professional football team.
Oh yeah, I dig the XFL. They do some cool shit.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool stuff. But you know, St. Louis is a good spot because they lost their NFL team.
Yes, see the stat.
Those people want football.
With Paxton Lynch, he's now the first quarterback to be benched in the NFL, USFL, and the XFL.
He got benched. Man,
he was a first-round pick.
Yeah, 6'8" the guy.
What could have been like? What the success story of? And look at AJ McCarron. You have this like the literally tale of both sides of football.
What if the Browns drafted or traded for McCarron, then they were supposed to that one year, and then that never went through?
Yeah.
Would the XFL still be a success? Would Baker Mayfield be in the XFL? What
happened?
He might.
So many what ifs.
Don't you worry.
He might end up there still. Don't sleep on Baker being the best.
Johnny Manziel.
Well, Josh Gordon, depending on how that goes, Johnny might be there next.
Dude,
I would
love it. Johnny Manziel in the XFL, instant success.
Yeah,
he hate me 2.0.
Could you imagine? Oh my God! I'm just thinking of the content that you could end up accidentally getting from Johnny Manziel.
I hope he's still athletic. Like I hope he's still in shape if he does do it.
Drinking is probably a sport somewhere where he's at. So
yeah.
But changing gears here as we end up, I think, hitting enough on XFL now, and I still want to talk baseball because we'll all end up probably talking the rest of the show about baseball. But before we get into that, guys, make sure you end up checking the Snooze You Lose podcast. Uncle Joe the Black Bookie has you covered with any spreads whatsoever. On Sundays, he ends up posting on the We Like Sportz website, WeLikeSportsPC.com, his parlay of the week, or his line of the day, I should say. And definitely great people over there at the Snooze You Lose podcast. Make sure to check them out. But, guys, as we were talking about XFL, I want to change gears now. I want to talk about baseball. And the biggest thing that seems to be the thing to talk about now, but ahead of spring training, is now the baseball rule changes because they're kind of becoming a little bit more crystal clear as time goes on with what the expectations are.
Yep. You want me to start, Peyton?
Go ahead. You're the first one to speak. Go for it.
So yeah, I mean, I'm going to try and remember all the rule changes they put in place, but there's the pitch clock. The bases are bigger. They're changing how many times the pitcher can pick off the runner. Well, it's any stoppage. So it's stepping off the mound is the same thing as a pickoff. Yep. A pickoff, calling timeout, like all of those count. And
yeah, but what if you can't pick them off more than 3 times? What if the fourth
it's
time?
It's a guaranteed stolen base.
You have to deliver your pitch to home plate, and this is what we were talking about. As I mentioned, the radio station earlier on, we were talking about the rule changes on Friday too. What's to say now? You have to make your approach, your body movement, your pitch has to go home. What about a pitch out though? If that guy's gonna go, the catcher could still throw it down to first. That's still allowed,
right?
But you pitch out and the guy's going though too, and he's getting as big as the lead as he wants.
When the guy he can run before you even pitch it, like like you could steal him. Like,
right. Once you've made your 2 moves to first base and like it's a balk or you gotta actually throw a pitch. The only options are a pickoff. But as soon as the pitcher steps on the mound, I'm gone.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? And this is the whole thing where like the whole point of like what I've been writing about is baseball has an issue with viewers and none of the things they're doing fix it. If you want more stolen bases, giving free stolen bases doesn't make that play exciting. It makes that play stupid.
Isn't that still technically what is it called when it's like 8th or 9th inning when it's runner's discretion or whatever when they just don't throw it? It doesn't count as a stolen base, but it's still
I don't know how they're going to score it.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's like the runner on second. You don't charge the run to the pitcher because it's like the ghost runner.
Right.
Like it's the same kind of thing. How do you decide really what is you know?
I mean, once the pitcher has no more move to challenge the runner and the runner goes, are they considering that a stolen base? Because Manfred has said he wants more stolen bases, and that was one of the ways he wanted them. So are they going to count them because the commish says that's what he wants? Or are they going to say it's a no challenge? We're not going to penalize the pitcher and say he was stolen on, or the catcher to say somebody ran on him when they had no choice.
I treat it like a balk.
But the MLB I don't know what their ultimate goal is for the sport, because they want more action, but at the same time, the stuff that people like about baseball are the things that they're eliminating in the rules. Like a pitch clock and the number of times you can go to pick off a runner ruins the excitement of having runners on base. So there is not more action. They say it's going to speed up the game, but they're not going to try and speed up the game by reducing advertising time, the stuff that no one likes. The NFL cut out ads and they reduced the game time. I don't know what they're trying to do. It doesn't make sense to me. The bigger bases, if it works out and people don't get hurt as often, okay, fine. I don't care. 3-inch bigger bases, I don't think is going to ruin the game of baseball. A pitch clock and not allowing the pitcher to address runners on base, I think ruins baseball.
It's tricky because like there's some guys like on the Indian or Guardians, they got Karinchak. I mean, Karinchak takes his time and he does his whole thing before. He has to change his entire pre-pitch routine now that he has to go that 15 seconds. And
I forgot, it was 100 and something. There's 100 and something pitchers in the MLB who averaged more time than the pitch clock is going to allow. So there's 100 pitchers in baseball who are going to 100% have to recreate their entire routine to pitch in the majors now. That's
and most of them are doing that right now too during spring training the next couple of weeks, because like Karinchak, that's what he's going to have to focus on without a doubt, is that you're going to have to end up going, all right, do I really mess around with this rosin bag for 5 seconds or do I just deliver? And it's like Trevor Bauer warming up for the Indians in the past. He had the oddest approach, the long toss. He did all this. Imagine as a starter now, though, it's just, hey, your delivery is being this move, this move, this move. You're cutting that out because it's adding too much time. But going back to the pitch clock and everything, good point to make is that when you ended up having guys on the Guardians that had their minor league spot starts, you ended up having them guys delivering to the plate a lot quicker, but that's also because those rules were already in place too. And on top of that, they're used to those rules, and that's what they tested out with. But you have to end up seeing why now too. That pitch com, when that was a thing last year, it worked so well, and it's going to help out so much this year because that's how quick the games are expected to go. It's going to be a quick game, but you also, as a pitcher, have to figure out your delivery. You have to get in the rhythm. You're not going to have signs to your catcher to figure out what's going on because you also have the guy in first now that you have to have a high school first and third type play to figure out, okay, where am I throwing it to now? Because he already made his 3 moves offensively or defensively as a pitcher.
But I guess the real question is, okay, with all the things that baseball has not going for it, right? I mean, viewership's down, ratings are down, fantasy baseball participation is at the lowest it's been in like 20 years. Do you think that speeding up a pitcher's delivery is really going to make the fans come back?
No.
Do you think it's the fact that the MVP, Aaron Judge, struck out 175 times and we're saying he's the best hitter in baseball? Like, is it the fact that guys are hitting 240 across the league and no one is – you're going to a game to watch 4 hits, 3 home runs for one team, 1 for the other, and the rest of the game you're going to see 17 strikeouts. No one enjoys watching that.
I'll let Peyton Vince Jr. go first here because I could end up going on with this, but I want CJ, Peyton Vince Jr., and Casey to go ahead.
Nah, you go first.
No, you go first. I told you first.
I mean,
technically, go first.
Change is different. I can't help but feel like baseball shoots itself in the foot. I feel like there'll be like unless they iron it out in the spring, like, yeah, there's going to be some shit about it that's ugly. Like, I was watching the Tennessee game, the dude trying to call time.
I saw that, and didn't he strike out?
So like, no, it was ball 4. So like, there's shit about it that's like ugly, and it's gonna take some time to figure out. But once you figure out, there is a lot of dead time in baseball. I'm not gonna act like there's not. Someone who sits around baseball pretty much every day of the week. If I'm watching somebody throw, I don't think most pitchers the like pick off thing will affect them too much. Most guys don't throw over 3 and 4 times. Pitchers are faster than ever to the plate. I think like you'll see it. I think the time it could be the most effective with the clock is the playoffs. You see those pitchers take that long pause. Always people freaked out like with the mound visits and stuff. I just think like baseball fans are hard to please because you take away like parts of the game that you don't, and like because baseball they affect like what they're doing is taking away parts of the game that nobody really cares about, but like we're gonna get mad about them because now they're changing the game. The bigger bases, I don't mind. I've come around. I'm team anti-shift as well. I just think I'm anti-shift.
But they're still incorporating a ways to have the shift. Like they've had in like legit do that. Like
you could run. You could once that ball leaves the pitcher's hand, you can go run to the other side of the bag. I mean,
yep. Or else, like if you end up,
I've come around to being anti-shift. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference.
I think the problem is. We're going back to the guys don't hit for average anyways.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it'll make I think you'll see like a guy that I think's average will jump up is like a Jose Ramirez. Not until Joey Gallo can't hit baseballs, so it doesn't matter.
Right? Yeah,
there could be nobody on that side. He can't hit the ball anyways. Like a guy like Jose Ramirez though, like he'll make some more. He'll get more hits. So I think like you see like little aspects of that. But like most of the stuff, I don't know. I think baseball's bigger issue is like blackouts and shit like that.
Viewership is hard. Sucks.
Attendance is down in most places, not all. Some places that do real well, but
well,
the Guardians, for example, like our opening series is in Seattle.
Yeah, hockey's dealing with the Bally Sports issue now, and Bally Sports was a big one for a lot of local baseball teams because Bally's got a ton of those contracts.
Yeah.
Hockey right now, the NHL is coming up with a plan to actually stream the games themselves that are supposed to be on Bally's, assuming that they're not going to be able to finish out the season.
Well, so they're already going ahead.
Yeah, so baseball, I think, is going to have a similar issue. The problem they had is if you bought the MLB package, like if you're a diehard baseball fan, you bought the package so you could watch 140 of the Tribe games. If they were playing in Detroit, Pittsburgh, like anywhere within like a 3-hour range, it didn't matter if you had the package because they'd say you're in a local coverage area, but they weren't on Cleveland television. They were on Detroit television. So the blackout rules are really dumb. I mean, they really don't make any sense. If you buy the MLB package, you should have every single game played in the entire country for the entire year. You paid for it.
The markets themselves don't make sense. I remember my cousin used to have them. This was years ago, and like there wasn't even commercial breaks. Like you got to watch the pitchers warm up in between innings and shit.
Oh wow!
Correct. Yeah, it's the NBA is the same way. You get to watch the halftime show, like or like the in between, like whatever's in the state, like in the arena on the big big screen. They have that.
That's sick.
Casey, what are your thoughts though about baseball's rule changes?
I mean, once again, on the statistics side, again, looking at it, I mean, it's going to change some things because, like we said, in the playoffs too, you watch the games, and like I think Drew said, with the pitchers take a little longer, and it builds that suspense, So as a fan too, like it just builds the suspense. It's a postseason game because every batter takes about 5 minutes just due to the, the mind games and everything. But overall, I think like in the good point with Jose Ramirez will have a bigger difference than Judge or Gallo's going to have just because of the way they hit. So I don't know. I don't think we'll see a huge change in things, but at first I think to start the season, it will be kind of a different thing. And then I'm sure if something comes up throughout the year or someone's struggling that used to be good, they'll bring that up as well, pitcher wise, So it's not going to just disappear.
That goes through rule changes. You see them; they're so awkward. The NFL.
Oh, exactly.
The NFL is a different game on TV now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, especially so. It's always an awkward period going through changes where you don't want changes. But
the thing is, with baseball,
I just don't think they're gonna make that big of a difference. Shaving
Baseball's a different sport.
If games go from 3 hours to 2.5, then I'll be like, yeah, well, that worked.
But I mean, in reality, though, look at the NFL though. The NFL, one of their complaints was that the games started to go over 3 hours. Yeah. That the games were like the 1 o'clock games were biting into the 4:20 game time, and
you'll see that every week though.
And that fans didn't want that. So what was an easy change that a lot of fans pointed out that the NFL actually did and shortened games? Instead of there being a commercial break after a touchdown and then immediately after a kickoff return, they eliminated the one after the kickoff return. So there was one commercial break, a kickoff, and play started. And the games actually got significantly shorter. It took nothing away from the game itself.
Would you prefer to have games short, like baseball games? So if you're going to a baseball game, would you rather have it be the half hour shorter or a half hour longer?
I think we all agree that it's all the long length. Because like if I'm buying a ticket to the game, I'm expecting to be there 3.5, 4 hours, depending on the night. And if it's a 2 hour game, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
4 hours.
Well, I think it's.
Well, I'm also including the post game shit.
I think it matters what kind of game it is. I don't mind a game being 3.5 hours if I see 15 hits, a 5-4 game, and I see action like throughout the game. If I see a 2-0 game and there's 3 hits and the 2 runs were on home runs, I'm not that excited. I mean, I don't get.
Well, it depends the type of game. If it's the playoff game,
right?
Yes. If it's a normal, because there's a reason for the game, so there's always suspense in it. Where if it's a game,
if it's a game on a Saturday in July, I don't want to be sitting there hoping that I get to see 2 hits for the whole game.
Yeah, but you see that on Saturdays and random throwaways.
But it's not fun. I'm telling you, I'd rather see 20 hits than 2 home runs. The game is more fun that way, and the fact that in the early 2000s, like the average viewers was like 30 million, and last year it was 9 million. The game of baseball hasn't changed that much. Game lengths are about the same. Why are a third less people watching? Because they're sick of watching stars strike out every game.
Yep. I don't think that's it.
What do you think it is then, CJ? Like, CJ, what do you think will end up factoring in that? Because, like, obviously, like, I'm going to end up saying it right now and calling the kettle black. With Drew, he's a Yankees fan. You're going to like seeing Yankees, Mets fan, New York guy. You're going to like seeing a lot more offense. But with Guardians guys,
I don't even think that's it.
You're like pitching, though. You had Corey Kluber. You have Shane Bieber. You had 4 or 5 out of the studs out of the 5-man rotation at one point. You're going to like seeing pitching a little bit more than.
Well, and plus the way that we play is different. We don't hit for power. We hit for contact and play small balls.
So. Sometimes, I mean, 9 million people is a lot of people.
Not when it's.
I think there's a lot of teams.
20 years ago.
I think the big thing is it feels like there's more teams. How many teams? If you wanted to make the playoffs in baseball, you could make the playoffs in baseball. That's what I feel.
Yeah, it's about half the field now.
I feel like about half the league isn't even trying. So,
but if you ask me who won the Super Bowl 4 years ago, the finals 4 years ago, the World Series 4 years ago, I probably couldn't name who won the World Series 4 years ago.
Yeah, but every in like every season in football, you know what I mean? Like even when the Browns are bad, you can watch bad football. I mean, you guys just talked XFL for how long? Like, just part of it. Baseball's gotten past, but football's king. Basketball does okay. Basketball's like a niche. I just feel like everything after football and even college football has such like a niche audience between baseball. Yeah, baseball's got some basketball's got its people. Hockey's got its people. They just feel like they're all like they're same. They can't. We can't compare baseball to football.
Yeah, but baseball's losing viewers. I mean, it's not a secret.
I think most sports are losing viewers.
Baseball has lost half its viewers in 4 years. Like the ratings are half of what they were 4 years ago. The average viewers are half of what they were 4 years ago. It's not because the games got a half an hour longer in 4 years. It didn't
Look at what happened, though, 4 years ago, though. You're going almost back to COVID when you had a 62-something game season. Right. You end up having that runner on second base. You have a lot of diehards, and believe it or not, you're going to end up losing diehards. And maybe with the thing is with, like, the rule changes, too, that has me looking forward to it, is the whole entire shift idea that after the pitch, you could have your third baseman run out to left field.
I disagree.
But here's some like stats too. Like I know Casey's a stats guy. Last year and the year before were the lowest batting averages by the league in the history of baseball. So to say that, and by the way, it was the lowest viewership in the history of baseball ratings. So those two things correlate pretty well. Hitters aren't hitting, people aren't interested, people don't watch.
It's a fair argument, though. Everybody's used to the steroid era, I'd say. Barry Bonds hitting 70 home runs. Because the thing is with Pujols, if you look back at him getting into the 700 club, nobody really thought he could do it. He was already old. The fact that he ended up having 20-plus homers was kind of a shock. Now looking back at it, he can't
I feel like baseball tainted itself, though. Like, people got turned away from baseball. You got the Astros cheating.
Yes.
You know, balls were juiced. Then the MLB physically juiced the balls.
Yeah,
I just feel like baseball turns off its own audience. That's more like people.
Well, I always say that, like I said before, with I agree. In other sports, I could watch any random team play basketball or football, but not baseball.
Yeah.
But it's like we said with what Manfred said about the championship just being a piece of metal. Like that's when I think it began to go downhill.
And look at the World Baseball Classic. Like, being honest here, they have really good teams.
Since Manfred's been in charge, he's done two things I kind of like, and even one of them, or three. I like the expanded playoffs.
Yes.
I like the increase in replay, but I hate seeing the replay where they freeze frame. The guy comes off the bat for like a half. Like, you know what I mean?
It's baseball.
That play.
Or like the tip of the glove touches his pant leg, and
I hate seeing that play, but I like the increase in replay. And I like the universal DH. That's about it. Everything else baseball's done the last few years, I've been kind of like, why the fuck are they doing that?
Honestly, I wish there was no DH.
I like the universal DH.
I'm an American League guy, but I think pitchers should have to hit.
I like that. I think guys like CC and like Madison Bumgarner, like pitchers that could actually.
That's definitely lowering the averages as well and the runs.
In
two automatic outs.
Bartolo Colon hitting that home run.
No, don't get me wrong. I love
that's amazing.
I think
it was the best.
I just like growing up with the DH. I don't even think pitchers hit.
But then you got Lou Marston, Juan Uribe, and a pitcher at the bottom of your lineup. That's an automatic 3 outs every time. I mean, like, that's the catch though. Is if you got a weak lineup.
I just think baseball can't get out of its own way, and I just think I don't know, a lot of sports get small. Like Casey said, the 1 week. I mean the freaking college football. I watched college football that whole day. I watched games before Michigan. I watched Michigan play TCU. I watched Georgia play Ohio State. From noon to midnight, I watched college football.
Yeah, I could do that.
Are you a Georgia or an Ohio State fan? Because I have to know because you usually wore a lot of Georgia gear in the past.
I'm a Georgia fan. I've always been indifferent to Ohio State, but I've been rooting for Georgia since 2009.
You
had the apparel ever since 2013.
I just got a nice
Matt Stafford.
Yeah, Stafford, David Green, DJ Shockley, Aaron Murray, Hudson Mason, legends.
But before we end up letting things wrap up, though, as we end up talking about the Guardians, maybe next week, because I don't think we'll have enough time to even talk about them this week, and it's going to be the first week of spring training probably. But on another
38 days till opening day.
That's right.
40?
38.
38. I'm 38. Sun's getting a little bit later up here. It's not like Florida for Casey. Casey could go screw off.
Yeah. It's like 90 degrees today.
Bard Raptors start on Wednesday, baby.
Yeah.
Jason Kipnis, though, guys, retired.
He retired today. Yeah.
What could have been from all your perspective? Because Drew, I obviously want to get yours first because outsider looking in 2016 World Series, Kipnis hits that foul ball. Could have been a home run if it was fair. What if was the biggest thing that was talked about that year? What was your thought when that happened in 2016?
I mean, look, if you look at one foul ball, like one deep foul ball, and say, if it was fair, what if, right? I mean, what if they don't have the rain delay? What if the game continues after Rajay hits his home run and there's momentum? I mean, that the end of the final game of the World Series shouldn't be like, all right, is this thing over yet? Right?
Yep.
I mean, it's game
just
7.
Forever.
That rain delay killed everything. But I mean, what if Kipnis isn't on the team? You could argue they might not make the World Series at all. So him missing a deep ball, yeah, if it's fair, it's the coolest thing that ever happened, right? It is. But a lot of people hit a lot of foul balls in the World Series that if they were fair, they would have been home runs. People hit 300-foot foul balls all the time.
Yeah,
So,
it's just in the moment, though, that everybody got emotional towards it. And then every replay afterwards, just a couple inches away from being fair.
Yep. And if it was him, the whole place goes crazy because he's a hometown favorite. People love the guy.
Yep.
But
who do you compare him to? Is he Kevin Love? Like, if you had to compare him to a guy from Cavs in the recent Cavs history, what is Kipnis?
I think that would be a good comparison. Kevin Love to like Jason Kipnis, kind of the guy that wasn't originally from here. He was a Chicago guy, like playing in Chicago. Kipnis did, and then like he just became dirtbag. Like that's what he was known as. He was never clean during any game, always sliding, always hustling, and he was always Cleveland. Like, that's where he had success too. Is he only?
But he was more talented. Kipnis is a better baseball player than Dellavedova is a basketball player.
Yeah, Verjao is the one that came in my head.
Verjao's pretty good. That's a good
comparison.
He was here for some lean years.
You got Z.
Yep.
Played the team for a long time, left at the end for a year. Nick Swisher.
Who doesn't like the guy? Like Kipnis, like everybody liked him.
Maybe your thoughts of Nick Swisher is different than my thoughts of Nick Swisher from the Yankees' perspective, but
I mean, I don't know that many baseball fans who don't like him as like a personality.
Bro, Ohio, CJ.
I hated Nick Swisher when we had Nick Swisher. Then he blamed Terry Francona for his career being over because Terry made him play first base. He said his knees went. I don't know nobody whose knees go at first base, but
played there enough years.
Payton's knees went at first base. He couldn't take it.
Nick Swisher and Michael Bourne.
That's exactly, yeah.
God. Bro, Ohio.
Well, what are your guys' thoughts on Kipnis retiring? What kind of impact did he have with you guys, Casey and CJ?
I wasn't a huge fan of him, truthfully, for a bit. And then he was pretty solid when he had the best month in Indian sales. Remember that he had the most hits or something in the month. And then towards the end, he was going pretty downhill. In that World Series, even like I don't think he had a good season going into it. I think he picked it up.
He played that World Series too. I want to say.
Yeah, I think he did because wasn't he hurt or something?
It's never pretty at the end, and I think that's one of those things where like I remember when I didn't pick up his option, like, oh, thank God they're not bringing Kipnis back.
Exactly. You put all the time. It's even like Love. We had him, and then we said, Jesus Christ, like I don't even want him anymore. Like 3 years ago, I wish we would have just bought him out then.
The end is never pretty. Well, the Love thing's different to me because like he fell off this year. He
turned it around because he blew a few.
Kipnis never like really like pushed his way out. That was nice, That like just sucks, man. You watch these guys get old.
Yeah, it does suck.
It was watching Kluber, man. Kluber was tough 8 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah, and then he's giving up a walk-off in the 15th inning to Oscar Gonzalez, which is the greatest.
You see him now, and it's like, who is it? I can't believe that was our guy for that.
I can't believe he's a 2-time Cy Young winner.
That thing
That's what I'm saying.
The outfielder. He's like, you used to be Mel Clark? Yeah, used to be.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy, like to think about.
No, I know he tried to get on with the Cubs and he tried to get on with the Braves.
He just couldn't go anywhere. Like that was it. Like, and I think that it might not even have been his decision.
Oh, he's the guy too. He was getting shifted at the end, robbed the hits. The prime example.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, that's about it already for the We Like Sportz podcast. Before we go, though, guys, plug your social media. Let's go. Drew, Casey, Peyton Vince Jr., and then it'll go to me, Peyton Vince.
All right. Well, Facebook, I'm on Drew Pappert, same name here. Twitter is Forest City Sport, and that's about all I have for this. So
fair enough.
Yeah, that's all I need, right?
Mine are all my name, first name, last name. I think I have all three things, so nothing crazy. My random Indian player for the day, since Peyton keeps forgetting it, would be Kerry Wood. I think I'm gonna go with. So
He's a good one. All right, now I'll beat him with Kerry Wood.
I gotta get one now.
I gotta think of Peyton's. I think my Twitter's at Peyton Vince 11, but I'm not sure.
No, Indians fan 11.
Snapchat's Indians fan 11, I think. Random Indians guy, dude. There's two I got. I got Betancourt and then Bob Wickman. Man, the Wickman's lit.
Joe Borowski.
That was gonna be that was gonna be my next one. Joe Borowski. What about Chris Perez?
Chris Perez.
Vinny Pastano.
Chris Perez dog. His dog.
Vinny Pastano too. The other one. We named every Cleveland closer. I think in 2005 on. I think we just hit.
Vinny P. Bullpen Mafia.
I'm telling you.
Well,
Brian Shaw.
Yeah, CJ, I got you covered. Mine is at Not Wilson. Wait, hold on. That's it.
Yeah, Wilsen.
Yes, Not
I
Wilson.
Probably change that. That's like in high school.
What can you change it to?
I don't know.
Not Spiller.
Not
CJ.
CJ Spiller, yeah. Not Peyton Vance, yeah.
But
not Peyton Vance.
Yes, not Peyton Vance. But guys, make sure to check us out on social media at We Like Sportz PC on Twitter, at We Like Sportz Bud, I think, is the second Twitter account too. We got two of them now. Instagram, We Like Sportz PC, website, WeLikeSportsPC.com. As for me, my Twitter, at Peyton Vince, just my first and my last name, no number 11, unlike CJ's Twitter handle. I feel like this is going to confuse the shit out of everybody.
Peyton, not Manning.
Not Manning. That's CJ's. Drew, before we go, though, naming a random Indians player. Can't be Nick Swisher either, because that's on top of your head.
Bartolo Colon, because I talked about his home run.
Yeah.
You have a softball there.
Yeah, easy.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in.
I actually was thinking Brian Shaw earlier, but you guys brought him up.
Well, yeah, he's been around since 2012. He's the grandpa of the Guardian.
Brian Shaw.
Well, and my buddy growing up that lived across the street from me has the same name, same spelling. So,
Does he do weather?
Yeah.
Does he really?
No.
Damn.
He got his ass there.
Guys, make sure to check us out next week, 7 to 8 o'clock. We Like Sportz Podcast. Check out the website. And on that note, random basketball player that's not named Kevin Love.
Ira Newell.
Jeremy Grant.
Damon Jones.
Antoine Jameson.
Attaboy.